may seem like we're always talking about the weather lately, but really, we are talking about the environment and changing climate. With no doubt that something is changing, our municipalities, our state, and country must look for ways to be more sustainable. We know that the municipal members of Sustainable CT are doing the work, but now, with the Community Match Fund, more people can do the small projects that will make their town or city more sustainable. Today we're joined by Lynn Stoddard, the Executive Director of Sustainable CT, and Catherine Divney, their liaison to the town of West Hartford, to talk sustainability and more. The Municipal Voice is the Connecticut Conference of Municipalities podcast in collaboration with WNHH LP 103.5 FM. I'm your host, Matt Ford. As always, be sure to give us a like and let us know what you're thinking in the comments. CCM's Municipal Voice podcast continues to present a key forum on important state local issues. The views expressed do not necessarily reflect the consensus views of CCM or our member municipal leaders. Lynn, Catherine, thanks for joining us today.
Great to be here. Thanks, Matt.
Thanks for having us.
So Sustainable CT is one of CCM's favorite partners. You're always doing something interesting over there, innovating ways to tackle a climate crisis and just generally showing us that small groups, departments, or towns and cities can do the work, and you don't need to hear it from necessarily, the president to get to work. For those that aren't aware at home, Lynn, can you talk to us about Sustainable CT and the work that you do there?
Sure, yeah. It's a program to really support and recognize towns and the great things they're doing to make their towns better places for all people to live. So we created it in partnership with Sustainable CT with input from basically all 169 towns across the state about 7 or 8 years ago. And it's a list of best practices. So things that these towns said were important to make your town a great place to live. It's partners to help towns and us to help towns implement those practices, and then certification. So we recognize that towns they can submit for certification, they've completed certain actions in different categories, and that's awesome. We want to applaud them for it and give them visibility. And I'll just mention quickly that sustainability in our program is defined very broadly. If you think about a town you've been to and what made it great, it was, yes, the environmental stuff, maybe beautiful landscapes, land stewardship, recycling, renewable energy. It was also other things that make it a great place for everyone, like you're feeling welcome and included. There's affordable housing ranges. There's programs in that stimulate arts and culture and a sense of who the community is. So we cover that broad range of actions, and it's a great
holistic definition of sustainability. Yeah.
Yep.
That's interesting. And you say that a lot of the policies and all the ideas came from the towns originally to start with. So it wasn't coming from somewhere else. It was coming from the towns.
Yeah, we had, a bunch of people, 10 work groups or whatever it was, sitting around saying, what are the things that make a town great? And then, little dot voting on walls and stuff pre-COVID to decide what should be in the program. And then we, of course, expand and modify the actions, bring in more best practices over time. So for example, we've always had renewable energy in there. Now that there are incentives for battery storage for solar, that's part of the roadmap, something towns can access easily related to state policy and programs that are available. Yeah, and I'll just say one question that often comes up that was part of the original design of the program, and you at CCM are acutely aware of this, is that towns are different across the state, and this program must be something that works for all towns. So we're really proud that we have a dozen towns certified of our smallest towns, under 5,000. Canaan is the smallest town in the state that's bronze certified. Great. Population's around 1,000 people, as well as the largest cities. So New Haven's silver certified and climate leader, and Hartford certified. So, and all the towns in between that range. So applies to everyone. 131 of our 169 towns are participating.
From the small towns to the biggest towns, and some in between. And one in between, of course, is West Hartford. And Catherine, you are the liaison to Sustainable CT for the town of West Hartford. Can you tell us what you do and what your relationship is with Sustainable CT and how you work with them in general before we talk about a community match fund, which is a new exciting program?
Yeah, sure. So actually my official day-to-day job for the town is actually energy specialist. So
Okay.
I really do energy efficiency
Hmm.
projects, renewable energy projects for the town. I track all the town's utility bills for the schools and the Board of Ed. Um, I work with schools and commissions to encourage conservation behavior. But
Mm.
in 2018, when Sustainable Connecticut first started, and I advocated for West Hartford to join, um, my responsibility kind of got broadened um, to include being the Sustainable Connecticut liaison. So for that work, I try and promote the program both internally within the
Hmm.
town and externally to the public. I share a lot of the resources and training that's available for free through the program.
Hmm.
And I also usually West Hartford's kind of on a 3-year, the kind of 3-year standard cycle.
Hmm.
I help shepherd the town's application, certification application through the whole process, which kind of involves promoting it, making sure tracking all the actions and points that we're completing, working with directors and town staff to complete actions and document those points and submit the application. I also think that over the years, West Hartford has been a big participant, as Lynn mentioned, in helping
Hmm.
shape the program. We tend to offer a lot of feedback and participate in a lot of the more program shaping
Yeah.
discussions as well.
So very active participants. And have you achieved certification at this point?
We have the first year of the program was available in 2018.
Hmm.
We became bronze certified
In the first year?
again 3 years later, and the within the program, your certification is good for 3 years, and
Hmm.
it's a big endeavor, kind of putting together a certification application
Hmm.
for many towns where staff are doing their day-to-day jobs as well. So in 2021, we became silver certified. In
Excellent.
2022, we went for the climate leader designation, and then we'll be looking at applying for gold certification next year.
Very exciting. Another exciting development coming out of Sustainable CT is the Community Match Fund. It feels like more sustainability projects have come out of this one area than might expect for such a small state. Nearly $2 million crowdfunded, over 1.6 million matched, 300 projects, and 18,000 patrons. That's a huge success by any measure. Lynn, tell us how this started and how some of the readers digest basics of the whole idea.
Yeah, I'd love to. So we thought a lot about how to support towns with money, with grant funding to implement
Mhm.
sustainability practices. And I actually sat on a grant panel from another state with a similar program, with a traditional grants program, which we all know,
Yeah.
someone says we have money for this, the town then puts together an application, then it takes months, and there's a review panel, and then you find out, you got it, or you didn't, or you got it less than you applied for.
Okay.
Equity is a really strong foundation of our program. It's always been the only required action for certification. Otherwise, towns
Mm.
have a choice of actions. And so we said, what does giving money for town sustainability projects look like from an equity lens?
Mm.
And what we came upon was this partnership with a crowdfunding program. So essentially, we say, "Hey, Matt, like, what's going on in your community? What's your dream for
Hmm.
something you want to have happen?" And you might say, there's like this vacant lot that, like, I think if we could get permission to grow food on it, and anyone who wanted to in the neighborhood. And we say, wow, that's great. That aligns with our values and Sustainable CT. We're going
Hmm.
to set you up on our crowdfunding platform, give you a crowdfunding coach. And then every dollar you raise for that community garden, we're going to match it from Sustainable CT.
Wow.
So they're highly visible projects that are community led, which is the really important part. And to us, yes, you're getting some money from your neighbors and the community, and those small crowdfunding dollars, big or small, doesn't matter. To us, beyond those dollars, the important thing is it's those people believing, sharing your vision for their community. So
Hmm.
if you can only crowdfund from 2 people, even if it's like $500 each, it's not a sign of community buy-in and community vision.
Mm,
We really want to show that one person with a dream that resonates with other people in the town, that we want to support that. So you don't have to be a 501c3 to a nonprofit to apply. You
mhm.
don't have to be a town employee to apply for the community match fund. You can be either of those,
Okay.
or you can be a person in a neighborhood with a great idea that you think other people will share that idea. And then, yeah, it's a like crowdfunding, it's pretty quick and easy. There's no long application. We have a conversation on the phone, and then you create your page, and that's essentially,
Yeah.
what is the articulation of your project. It's not a separate application.
Yeah. And is the ease perhaps as compared to traditional part of that equity, like removing some barriers that smaller towns that don't have departments or a separate person to
Right.
this might have?
Anyone can apply, so that's the ease of it. And the angle that ideas only get funded if lots of people in the community believe in
Yeah.
them. So it's not a top down, like, we think we need this for our town or whatever. It's very much growing up from people. Even if the town's leading the project,
Hmm.
they've got to get a certain threshold of donors to show that it's indeed a community vision.
And with all these interesting stories and projects going on, Connecticut Public Media is featuring a lot of these stories. Can you tell us about how that came about?
Yeah, so this is the fourth year that Connecticut Public TV is doing an episode called Resourceful. I forget the full long title, but it's basically showcasing sustainability in Connecticut communities.
Very cool.
And some of the funders overlap with funders who've supported us in the past. And yeah, so we've helped provide some ideas on great things happening across the state for CT Public to pursue. And of
That's
course,
very
they
cool.
have full editorial license, but it ends up that it's been great because they're showcasing a lot of these great projects that are led through our community match fund or the certification program, because all of these things are things we want people to understand and recognize and repeat and replicate across the state. So that will be airing on October 7th at 7 p.m.
And what is the impact of crowdfunding? Does that bring the community together in support of these projects?
It's visibility in the community
Yeah.
that someone wants to do this thing, and it's also buy-in. So, like I said, it
It's
can
the
be very
old money
small
where your mouth is
donations.
sort of
Yeah, money where your
idea.
mouth is. Many of the people end up volunteering in the project. And yeah, I mean, these are things like I mentioned, community gardens. We're having a lot of projects because we actually did a little extra promotion on projects that deal with food waste and
Hmm.
organic waste, which, as we all know, is virtually a crisis in Connecticut.
Yeah.
Our waste is being shipped out of state for the first time in many, many years, in
Hmm.
a bulk of our waste. So we want to see that food waste handled in Connecticut and going back to either preventing it through food waste prevention campaigns, or going back into creating very nutritional value for the soils.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of those types of projects. We have a lot of kind of cultural awareness, community murals that are funded by the crowdfunding program, the Community Match Fund, things that are engaging youth and workforce in green jobs or
Yeah.
climate change. So yeah, lots of those kinds of things.
That's great stuff. You are listening to the Municipal Voice on WNHH 103.5 FM. Catherine, West Hartford is really into the Community Match Fund. You're a super user. What draws you to the Community Match Fund?
Yeah, well, I think it's a fantastic resource for residents,
Hmm.
and it's a way for our engaged citizens to do something good for the
Hmm.
community. For my role, I work with the town's PR specialist and our kind of commission network to
Mm.
promote the match fund. And especially, as Lynn mentioned, the fact that anyone in a town can do a project, the town doesn't have to be directly involved.
Yeah.
And also the fact that it's kind of this fast, flexible
Yeah.
mechanism to get funding, and there's not a lot of the paperwork or
Mm-hmm.
timeline requirements of a regular grant process.
This is maybe a little less daunting than some of those other grants. That's
Yeah.
cool stuff. Could you tell us about some of the projects that you've been able to accomplish using the Community Match Fund?
Yeah. West Hartford has utilized it a lot, actually. So I think some of the projects we've done more recently have been LED lights for one
Mm-hmm.
of our youth baseball fields. Things like art murals or painting those concrete barriers where you have outdoor dining.
Mm-hmm.
We've done some street banners in the center of our town with one of the
Nice.
local business organizations. As Lynn mentioned, we've done some gardens projects and planting trees, and even events like
Mm,
Earth Day events and Pride events.
that's very cool stuff. You just mentioned the LEDs, and Lynn, before you mentioned, some of the waste programs. Are some of these also do they help towns save money? It sounds like maybe because I know like sending the waste out is expensive, and old school lights were use up more electricity. So is there sometimes actually some savings on top of the sustainability with these?
Absolutely. And Catherine can probably speak better to that than most people as the energy manager. When you're saving energy, our energy costs are really high.
Yeah.
You're not paying for that energy when you're not sending your like heavy organic waste to an out-of-state landfill or an in-state resource recovery facility. You're saving lots of money on the tip fees and the transportation. So huge dollar savings on a lot of these things.
Catherine, the West Hartford is, as we mentioned, certified silver, but you're also among the first to earn the Climate Leader designation. Can you tell us about the Climate Leader designation, what that means, and how you manage it?
Yeah, so climate designation was a new pilot program that Sustainable Connecticut rolled out in 2022. It's a special designation which recognizes municipalities that are focused on climate change and reducing greenhouse gas emissions. So it's the Sustainable Connecticut has identified particular actions within
Hmm.
the program that contribute to those efforts, and you have to implement those specific actions to earn the designation, or choose
Yeah.
actions, particular actions. So I guess with my focus on energy as the energy specialist, West Hartford has done quite a lot of work in that area, so we were able to achieve the designation the first year in the pilot, and I believe now that designation is required for gold.
Interesting. So it's a step in between the silver and the gold.
It's actually an overlay to certification.
Okay.
So a lot of our actions have always had a major climate impact, either
Hmm.
resilience or reducing greenhouse gas emissions. But we came to the point where we really wanted to flag those, that like towns that are getting certified with the points in our roadmap, if a certain portion of those points are from high climate impact actions,
Hmm.
they get like an extra flag notation on top of their certification. At the same time, after we did the pilot for climate leaders, we were developing the gold level certification. So up
Mm.
until now, we've only had bronze and silver. This is the first year that towns are eligible to apply for gold. We're going to be announcing gold, all 2023 certified towns on Friday.
Ooh.
And I will tell you, there will be gold among that announcement. So we're really excited that we'll have the first towns to showcase under climate under gold. As part of gold, we asked towns and people like Catherine and many other towns, what makes a town super exemplary. Like
Hmm.
this is like the Olympics. We're not trying to create a gold level that everyone can achieve necessarily.
Yeah.
We're providing support so all can get there, but it's really exemplary. And to us, that meant three things that are a little bit stronger than our traditional certification program.
Hmm.
One, towns are going much deeper on equity. So they have to do a little bit more to demonstrate, including inclusion in municipal processes and changing municipal decision making based on conversations they've had with underrepresented folks in their communities. So deeper on equity. The second thing was deeper on climate. So in order to be certified at gold level, you have to achieve climate leader designation. And the third thing, which is, as we know, we live in a state of 169 towns. We're certifying towns by like a unique town, but we said no, regional collaboration, multi-town collaboration is critical. So the third element of gold, of this exemplary thing, besides equity and climate leaders, is that you're actually leading an initiative with other towns that's new. So it's great if you're going to your council of governments meetings and participating in those. That's not enough for achieving that characteristic for gold. You have to actually be out there in front leading something new with other towns.
That's really interesting. So it sounds like a lot goes into achieving these certifications. Do you have resources that help towns achieve them?
Yes, we have lots of free resources, no cost to the towns. They kind of fall into the category of, some of them are really like free consulting. So those are with partners we work with. For example, the Nature Conservancy provides resources for a half-day workshop on community resilience building. So bringing together different people from the town to talk about the vulnerabilities to climate change, flooding, drought, extreme weather events, and what specifically, like what roads, what portions of their towns are susceptible or will be, and how they can begin to plan for that. And that's all like fully supported by the Nature Conservancy, guiding towns through that exercise using maps and whatnot. That's one example. We have partnership with the utilities where they are supporting a program at Yukon that does free energy benchmarking for towns using an EPA tool, and helping towns understand the performance of all of their municipal buildings from an energy perspective, and so on. From our beyond the partner support and some of those examples, we have equity coaches on contract with Sustainable CT who are available to work with towns to understand what is that? How do I connect with populations in my community that I may not know or be aware of? And how do I begin to listen and have a conversation so that those people can help impact town decision-making and town programming? So the equity coaches are a huge part as well. We have a lot of webinars, workshops. We really love to showcase towns talking to their peers. So, you know, for example, Catherine or West Hartford talking about what they did for climate leaders or energy in a particular school or something, to help other towns learn from that. So there's a lot of peer support. That's the idea. Make all of this available on our website, the certification reports and so on, so other towns can actually copy, borrow, and build on that and improve what's going on in their town.
That's really cool. Catherine, why is the work you're doing with Sustainable CT important for the town of West Hartford?
I guess for me, at least, it's important because it has to get done. I mean, it's the right thing to do. And I think now more than ever, there's a sense of urgency around this, these actions. I mean, for me, we all see the recent dramatic changes in our world, whether it's COVID or environmental justice and racism, the weather, climate change. And I think we have to make progress. And I think Sustainable Connecticut provides kind of a nice framework, a roadmap for towns. So it holds our feet to the fire so that we can make progress. But of course, you know, there are other benefits to towns. There's, as Lynn mentioned, the recognition. There's free resources and training, which is a huge benefit to towns. The partnerships and collaboration, and then transparency of the program and the peer learning that happens is really valuable to towns, as well as the funding, the match fund, and other things that we've talked about.
Great. Lynn, same question, but for the entire state. How does Sustainable CT work important?
Yeah, similar to what Catherine said. I'll add that climate change, although huge, global, transcending generations in terms of the impact, local decision making is so critical to our behavior. So if
Mm,
you just think about land use and zoning, whether you have to drive to work or not, whether there's public transit or your town is walkable, to to go to work, to buy groceries, to access local foods, whatever it is, zoning and land use is really critical to our emissions, each of us, as well as towns being great places to kind of showcase and lead by example. So we feel that, like in the grand theory of change for the universe and related to climate change, local government decision making and engagement of residents in their communities is absolutely critical. And not only, of course, to the climate crisis, but to our well-being, our sense of connection, our like having great communities. I mean, I think maybe this is an assumption on my part, but like it seems that communities are more whole when they're connected.
yeah.
If you know some of your neighbors and don't feel isolated, and someone reaches out in a crisis that may be happening, across the country or just within your family, this is all really important stuff. And
Yeah.
I think about our logo, which is this map of the state of Connecticut with dots on it of different sizes and then concentric circles. We call them the ripples, and that's really kind of the vision of this: local decisions and actions then ripple out to the state, and obviously beyond the state, and even beyond the nation. So that's our hope, that this is a framework to do that work. And we really see ourselves, our small staff at Sustainable CT, as just kind of enabling this to happen. So
Hmm.
as we talked about, we've brought in towns to guide how this program looks and to make it valuable. We often say Sustainable CT was built by towns for towns, and we continue to have that as our kind of motto in
Hmm.
guiding new programming and the support we provide, and realizing that we have this new action, but towns aren't doing it because they don't have the resources. They need maybe some of those no-cost support resources we talked about, and then work with partners to provide that. So yeah, we're kind of the fortunate vessel to help, ideally help towns do this important work.
Great.
I can't say enough about Lynn and her staff. They're fabulous, great supporters for all towns. It's a wonderful program.
That's awesome. And kind of a
Thanks.
final question. This is going to be for both of you, but we'll start with Catherine. We talk about the climate crisis and some of these other things that are problems that we're trying to fix. But for you, are you optimistic about your work? Are you optimistic about the future for West Hartford?
Uh, so I'll have to say some days yes, some days no.
Okay.
And I think the most frustrating thing for me is when politics gets in the way,
Hmm.
not only at the federal level, but at the local level as well. I think it affects the leadership and the funding, and it gets in the way of what I hope people know is the right thing to do.
Great. Lynn, how about you? Are you feeling optimistic about the future for Connecticut?
I am. This work helps me maintain that optimism because
Hmm.
we're looking for the great things that towns are doing. There's a lot to complain about. I
Hmm.
often say we're the yay sayers, not the naysayers. We can all find things that we're frustrated with about our towns or our country, but let's really hear those brilliant stories of optimism. The Community Match Fund is a great example of that. Like just people changing their neighborhoods, like one person at a time who has an idea. Let's lift those visions. Let's tell those stories. Let's share those out. I mean, the climate crisis is incredibly daunting. I'm not always optimistic about that, yet none of us know how it will all unfold, especially with the mystery
Hmm.
part of leadership, which is what it hangs on right now. And you gotta, you gotta stay in the fight as long as you can, and you gotta believe that there's room for change and success there.
Well, here. Well, thank you both for all the hard work you do, and thank you for coming on the show today. Lynn and Catherine, thanks for coming on the show.
Appreciate the
Thank-
opportunity, Matt. Thank you. And thanks to CCM for the awesome partnership. And you were at the table in the very early conversations and a convening entity as we brought municipalities together to talk about what makes our towns great places to live. So we appreciate that partnership all these years and ongoing.
Thank
And
you.
to the people like Catherine in the
And
community.
to the people like Catherine in the community.
Obviously.
Thanks for
yeah.
having us.
We'd like to thank our guests, Lynn Stoddard and Catherine Divany. We'd like to thank our sponsors at Gateway Community College and Housatonic Community College. Learn more at gatewayct.edu and housatonic.edu. The Municipal Voice is a co-production by CCM and WNHH 103.5 FM. Christopher Gilson is our producer, Harry Draws on the boards, and I'm Matt Ford, your host. Be sure to check out our Facebook page and give us a like, and watch out for our CCM chat series on the YouTube page.